Hey there, everybody. I'm Mike DeLisio.
And I'm Chris Yee.
Today we're going to be taking a look at a small box card game coming from Allplay. This is Big Top by designer Taiki Shinzawa, who is probably best known for their trick-taking games.
Right, to the point where I was like, oh, cool, another trick-taking game from Allplay and Taiki.
Right. This is not a trick-taking game. This is an auction game. Let me briefly show you how it plays, and then we'll come back here and let you know what we think. All right, here we see Big Top set up. This is a closed economy auction game. Every player is going to start with a shield here that's going to give them some information about the game. They're going to start with $22 in coins behind their shield. There will be a bank with a supply of 22 coins, and everyone's going to have a starting ringmaster in front of them as well. When you look at these cards, there's a couple of things to pay attention to. Here in the upper left is going to be the amount of points that this will score if it is completed. Here you see a number of bidding numbers. So if you were to make a bid with any of those numbers, you could place a coin from your card onto this card. And I'll show you how that works here in a moment. All right, so let me push this up so you can see it a little bit. So everyone would have these face up in front, and everyone would also start with one card in their hand. There are a couple of different types of cards I wanted to show you. You've got the regular attraction cards, which look very similar to those ringmaster cards that have a point value here. They've got a number of bid values here. And then you've also got these clown cards. These are going to be for end game scoring. And so if this clown card would get completed, it's going to give you a particular type of end game scoring that is also referenced right here on this clown end game scoring. So that particular one would have given you an extra point for each of your completed cards. All right. You also have some cards that have icons in their upper right. So this is an immediate effect that would trigger if you completed it. That also is here. They would place a coin from behind your screen on an empty space on one of your incomplete cards. So that is something that you might be able to do right away if you completed this card. This is a star attraction, and what is so important about this star attraction is not only that there is a majority end game scoring for these cards, so whoever has the most star attraction completed are going to get a particular number of points, but at the end of the game, if you have no completed star attractions, you cannot win. So when those cards go up for auction, it is very, very, very heated. Let's just put it that way. All right. So every turn, one person is going to be the auctioneer. They're going to be the one putting a card on auction. They'll always have one card in hand, and they'll draw one card from the top of the deck. And then they're going to look at these two cards, and they're going to choose which one that they're going to put up for auction. All right. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind here. Again, you've got these point values, and this just happens to be 2 star attractions. And so if I put this human cannonball up for auction, it might be hotly contested because it's a 2-star attraction. So let's say I did that and I kept this for a later round. I went ahead and I put the human cannonball up for auction. Once that goes up for auction, the auctioneer is the first one to either make a bid or pass. And if you pass in a round, you cannot come back into the auction. So you have to bid positive whole numbers. You can't bid more than you're able to pay. You have to always increase the bid or pass. All right. So let's say that I was going to start the bid on this human cannonball. It would behoove me to maybe bid 3 because on my starting ringmaster card, I have a 3 showing there. So let's say I showed a 3. That would allow, or I bid a 3. That would allow me to place one of my own coins on this card. However, this human cannonball also has 3s on it. And in that case, you take one from the supply and you place it there. So whoever wins this card is already going to be having one of the coins completed. Potentially, all the coins could be filled and you could win a completed card. That's not necessarily common, but it could happen. Then it would go to the next player in clockwise order. They can either increase the bid or pass. Looking at their starting ringmaster card, maybe they would increase the bid to 5 so that they can place one of their coins on their own ringmaster card. Then it would go to the next player and they would be able to either increase the bid or pass. And so they might bid 6, they might bid 9, knowing that I would come across and very likely upbid their If they bid a 6, I would very likely bid a 9. So maybe to block me, they would say, I'm going to bid 9, okay? And so then I would have to make a choice whether I would up the bid or not. Whoever wins the auction is going to take the card and place it in front of them. When cards get completed, you take the coins from the cards and you put them back behind your player screen, and then you put them underneath your completed attraction cards. You always are going to keep it so that the point values are visible to all players and the star values are visible to all players. If the auctioneer wins the auction, the money goes back to the bank. Okay, so otherwise it would go to the player who gets the card, or excuse me, otherwise it would go to the auctioneer. If the auctioneer wins the bid, the money goes to the bank. Otherwise, the money that is spent for the bid goes to the auctioneer. You're going to continue to do this until you get through this deck. In the bottom 4 cards, an ending card is shuffled in, and that will trigger the end of the game. At that point, you're going to do some end scoring, which was talked a little about here. Basically, you will first check to make sure if there's anyone without any completed star attractions, because they will not be able to win. Then you will complete your points for completed attractions, your completed clown attractions, and any of those endgame scoring particulars. 1 point for every 5 coins behind your screen or on an incomplete attraction, and then that majority scoring for star attraction points. All right, that is Big Top. Let's let you know what we think. Okay, so there you have it, a relatively, well, very simple rule set, actually, but a slight twist on an auction game, just like the designers' other games have been slight twists on trick-taking games. So yeah. I guess the twist here, or the hook here, would be this idea that you're bidding on cards, but those bids are oftentimes going to be influenced by things that are open information on the table. So you'll have, your cards in front of you and the card you're bidding on, and if you bid a number that is represented on that card, you take a coin either from your supply or from the bank. What do you think of that hook?
I really like the idea that the cards in the middle get those coins from the bank for 2 reasons. One is it makes them I've never seen an auction game where the thing being auctioned becomes juicier in this way the more that people bid those specific numbers, to the point where you can have a completed card if you win the auction. You're going to pay buku bucks for it.
You are.
But if you are the person who is the auctioneer for the round, you're getting those buku bucks.
Right.
It's a closed system. Everything works well together.
Yeah, it does. The one thing that I noticed is that since you have a small hand, you'll always have one card in hand, and you'll draw a card from the deck when you are the auctioneer. Excuse me. And there can be a situation where, as you mentioned, if you're the auctioneer, you're getting the bid for that round, unless you're the one that wins it. If you don't get a particularly juicy card, that can feel a little bit off. I mean, do you feel like the luck of the draw is maybe a little too much on this, or?
I don't know about too much, right?
Yeah.
The cards are, there's an attempt to kind of have some balance to them, but some of them feel a bit off. Some of them are just not as incentivizing. And when you have one of those cards already in hand, you draw one at the start of the round and say, I'm playing that one. I'm just going to hold on to this one the whole game, because I don't think anybody really wants it. It's worth fewer points. It's harder to complete. Yeah, it limits your options.
It does. But yeah, again, this is a very simple game. There's not a whole lot to talk about. The art is great. I like the art from the Micho, and I like these small box games that All Play has been doing, and the quality of the cards are fine. The gameplay itself is I think it's going to depend on whether you like it. How do you feel about auction games? Because this is just a pure, straight-up auction, and I know that mechanic can be divisive for people. If you feel like you don't understand what the value of something is, or you have trouble evaluating what the value is, that is not going to be mitigated here. If anything, it might be accentuated because it's a closed economy. And also, you've got that situation where you could just be shut out of the game completely if you don't win a star attraction. And so, if you get yourself in a bind, that can probably feel a little bit punishing. I think how you feel about that idea is going to affect how you feel about the game.
I like that hook. I do. I think that the hook of you cover up the coin values is neat. and then the hook of you have to have at least 1 star.
Yeah.
Because you could very well end the game without it and say, oops, I would have done great except for that. I like that because then it creates, that's part of the balancing of valuating cards. Cards with stars on them now become instantly juicier. The interesting thing that we experienced, and every time I've seen this, right, you're looking at the numbers that other players want to bid.
Yes.
And you're going, oh, you really want to bid a 6, huh? I open with a 6.
Right.
You're like, oh, one day I'll cover this 6.
Yep.
And it's harder with the lower value cards,
yes.
with the numbers that show lower values, like a 1, 2, 3, 4. If you get that mid to late game, that's going to be nigh impossible to finish.
Right.
It's a clever idea, but it is a little bit of a hiccup, the timing of that matters.
That is true, and I guess, certain cards are going to be situationally more or less valuable or more viable to complete than others. That is true, so that is something to keep in mind as well. Do you want to just go ahead and give a final thought on it?
Yeah, so I like a lot of what it's doing, but score-wise, I'm going to come shy of a recommendation. I'm giving this one a 6.
Okay.
It gets a lot of credit for being really clever, doing interesting things where the amounts that you want to bid are influenced by the cards in front of you, in the middle of the table, and in front of other players. But I do find the game drags a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the cleverness is also a little bit of a weakness, wherein you feel like you're kind of getting shut out of bids. Not infrequently.
Right.
Frequently
It happens. It does happen.
So yeah, I think it drags a little bit, but it is a neat experimental design almost. If you like auction games a lot and want to experience something different, then I absolutely recommend you try this one because I like what it's doing. But as like a broadly, I just can't really recommend it. I think that there's some cleaner games.
Well, you just described me. Somebody who likes auction games a whole lot and wants something unique. So I'm coming at a 7. I understand where you're coming from, and this is a recommendation with a caveat, and it is for those people who really do like auction games and want something that feels different than other auction games. I will not argue that it does drag a bit. I mean, I think that it goes a little bit longer than I would like. Not terribly long, not enough to make it so I wouldn't knock it down too much, but it is something to consider. You do have to be aware of that idea of you may just not get a great card that you can put up for auction when you're the auctioneer, and that can feel a little bit frustrating. But it is unique. I love auction games, and so this is kind of more of a personal for me. That's why I'm giving it that 7. But tread lightly if you're not an auction fan, because it is definitely a bit odd.
It doesn't do anything to assuage the concerns of, I don't really like auctions. Like, oh, let's play something different, right?
Yeah.
And of course, people will say, well, that sounds a little bit more of like a personal score for you. But that's what we do.
It is. It is a personal score for me. Very
If you
well.
have tastes similar to Mike, then take his word a little bit more for at face value than maybe mine.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there you go. So, a couple of different opinions on this one, although not too far off. That is Big Top. All right. Until next time, I'm Mike DeLisio.
And I'm Chris Yee.
Have fun
in the big ring, the center ring.
The center ring. The center ring.
That's a thing, right?
Yeah, it's a 3-ring circus, right?
It's a 3-ring circus.
You want the center ring.
Yeah.
Okay.
Top ring is not as fun.
No, you don't want that one.
Bottom ring, well, you got to dig for a while.
You want that center ring, right in the middle.
This has gone on too long. That's our judgment. We're done.
There you go. I'm keeping all of that.